We cannot have a foreign instruction or a foreign curriculum that is not natural to the development of the human being. We impart it and imposed on the child and then expect him to learn and be educated. When we talk about Montessori education, it is not about transacting another curriculum. When we say Montessori education, it's an aid to life. Our way of working with the children is providing an aid to life. We do not comply to any particular curriculum or whatsoever. We rather comply to the natural laws of development of a human being. So all living forms follow natural laws of development. For example, the animals, they have instincts, and these instincts guide them through their development, right? For example, a camel has instincts, survival instincts we call them, to survive in a desert. A polar bear has a similar set of survival instincts, different from a camel though, but it can survive in very cold regions, the freezing conditions, right? Now, there is one specific issue with these animals. The problem with animals is when you remove them from their natural environment, their existence is threatened, right? You can't have polar bears in the Sahara Desert or the camels in the Arctic, whatever, right? Human beings, on the other hand, are very different. I wouldn't say superior. Okay, let's not use that word here, but it's a very different. Our capability is that we are able to adapt to the environment around us and survive, right? We survive in any environment. We have the Eskimos in the polar regions, we have the Kalaharis in the forests of Africa, right? So the way we live and the way we survive, the way we thrive is entirely different from animals. We are not just depending on our biological coding to tell us that, this is where you live and this is what you do, this is what happens. Now that doesn't happen. Rather, what we do is we are guided by our tendencies to meet our needs and survive. Now I'll talk about these needs and tendencies a little bit so that you get a sense of where we're going, right? We have needs, right? Most of you know that our needs are food, clothing, shelter, the basics. There are other needs also, but we'll just talk about the common ones. So food, when we talk about food, human beings have found ways to find food in every single place, right? We can find food and water in all hospitable places on the planet, be it the deserts or plains or the snowy places everywhere, right? So we meet our needs, and that is how animals and human beings both survive. We also have certain tendencies, right? These tendencies are there from us from birth to maturity, right? Maturity is becoming a fully grown adult, and afterwards, these tendencies help us to grow and help us to survive. The reason why we are talking about all of these is these have a direct impact on the way we educate the child, because after all, it's a human being that is growing. We cannot have a foreign instruction or a foreign curriculum that is not natural to the development of the human being. We impart it and imposed on the child and then expect him to learn and be educated. So that's a rather illogical way of doing it, I must say, right? So when we look at these tendencies, so rather than discussing the tendencies in detail, I'll give you some examples, right? Human beings have a tendency to be gregarious. So when I say be gregarious, it means form groups and communities, right? Often we try to find ourselves communities, friends, family, relatives, and your social circles, your sports groups or whatever, right? Human beings always tend to be a part of those groups. I mean, even if you open your WhatsApp, you'll be some part of some group or the other, right? It's just the tendency of a human being to be a part of a group. No human being is ever brought up and grown in isolation, right? That doesn't happen. So this is one of the tendencies that human beings have, and we should respect this tendency and work with this. Another tendency that I would like to highlight is, I don't know if I ask, maybe some of you will say, I am bad at mathematics, right? I mean, that's the common thing I keep hearing. I'm bad at math. Math never comes to me. Now, to all of you who think this, let me give you a counter argument, right? When you think about some of the greatest chefs of the country, whose names you don't know, right? Who have never been in limelight, who have also never been educated, right? They don't know what the measurements are, but they have this tendency to be precise and to be exact and cook the most perfect dish. So can we say that, and that is a mathematical calculation, how much salt goes in, and even for you, if you're taking shampoo out of a bottle when you take a bath, it's a precise calculation that you're doing. It's not a willed calculation. You're not, okay, today I'm going to take it precisely. Let me measure it. Let me do it. No, you just do it, right? So it's there in you. It's a tendency that is there in you, and you always work upon it, right? The tendency to be exact, right? So these tendencies are there. Now, what happens sometimes is, the kind of instruction, the medium of learning that you have, sometimes, make you feel that you are not, let's say, you hate mathematics on paper, solving certain set of problems, but that doesn't mean you don't have a mathematical mind. Everybody has a mathematical mind, and that is a human tendency. So from these examples, let's try to understand the characteristics, okay? These tendencies that are there, they are fundamental and they are unchanging, right? They've been there throughout for human beings. They have been there with the human beings from the very beginning. It's not a concept of today, right? Even the early men lived in groups. Nobody lived in isolated situations where one person lived in a cave far away from somebody else, right? They might go for a vacation, but then they usually come back, right? They are common to all human beings, whether it is a simple or a sophisticated culture. You will see this in the Kalahari tribes. You will see this among us, right? Ours is a sophisticated culture, right? So it is not that it is only there for a specific set of humans. This is there for all human beings. And this is common whether human beings are rich or poor. Okay, there is no distinction there. And they are there with the individual since birth. These tendencies drive us to meet our needs. And when we meet our needs, we survive and we grow. So this is how process of human development happens. Now, what is the purpose of a human child, right? The human child is born into a society, right? When the human child is born into a society, the aim of any education system, curriculum, whatever, right, should be making the child a fully functioning member of that particular society. Today, we don't have smaller society. We have global society, right? So we want a human being to be a part of this planet or maybe a part of this universe. And he has to be a fully functioning adult when he grows up. It's not like he's 25, he's 26, he's dependent on people and, he's not capable of himself. That is not what we want, right? We talk about careers and so on. And that is basically what we're trying to say is we're trying to make a fully capable adult, a fully functioning adult. So to understand how do we develop such a human being, right? We need to understand human development itself, right? So human development is not linear progression. When we talk about human development, it's not like you go from LKG to UKG to first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. So it's a linear progression. So as you go up, your academic rigor increases, your exams increase, your grades become more important. All of that happens, right? But scientifically, that's not how human being develops. It's more, this kind of an education is more of a colonial education that we had, and it has its roots in the Industrial Revolution. So I'll not go more into that. You can look into it on your own. What I'll be talking about is how human development happens scientifically. Dr. Montessori was she's the first female doctor in Italy, and she's worked with students with difficulties. And when she's worked with students with difficulties, and she's looked at the existing prevailing science at that time, the science of psychology and everything at the time, and this was the 1900s, right? And then those students took a standardized test like you have a 10th grade exam, and they were able to do, their averages were better than the regular students. And then she realized that something is wrong with the traditional education system, and then she looked at it very scientifically, right? What we do is very scientific, and we know one thing: when it is scientific, it is based on research and it is based on facts. So this development of human being is in 4 phases. So when I say these 4 phases are, the first phase is called the first plane, which is from 0 or the birth to 6 years of age. The second plane or the second phase of development is from 6 years to 12 years of age. The third phase or the third plane of development is from 12 to 18 years. And the fourth phase or the fourth plane of development is from 18 to 24 years. Child becomes an adult or reaches maturity around the age of 24, right? So these are the broad boundaries that are there, and this is a scientific process, and we see this day in and day out when we work in our classrooms, right? So at every stage of development, the sensitivities that the human being has, the way they approach their tendencies is very different, right? So we have to cater our methodology, our practicum in a way so that it is developmentally appropriate for that particular plane, right? It should be developmentally appropriate. If it is not developmentally appropriate, what happens is often we see this rejection from the child, which says, I'm not interested in learning, this is not what I want to do, and all of these things you see. But if it is developmentally appropriate to the child, you will see that they are automatically interested, and you will find sustained concentration, all of those things in their work. What I'll do is I'll start with the first plane. I think that's a good place to start so that you get a sense of how these things are, the psychology of the first plane, and how we can address it. So I'll not talk about how we do it in a Montessori classroom per se. I'll be giving you those ideas as well. But this is something for you if you have children at home also. So you can use these takeaways and you can work with your child at home. And this can also help you understand and work with your child better. Now let us look at the first plane, the physical child, the physical growth. It is a period of rapid transformation, right? That first 6 years of their life, they start, at least in the first 2 years, they start from being born to crawling, sitting, standing, walking, and running, right? It's a period of lot of transformation, and they love, and what they want to do is they're developing themselves, right? This is a period where they're developing. They're moving towards a higher level of independence. Initially, they're just lying down. They cannot get up. What do? They try to get up, and they are able to get up on their own. And once they get up, they're able to get up and sit. They try to stand. That's the next level of independence, right? So they try to meet these different levels of independence, right? And they try to do it on their own. The best thing is any human child, now nobody is trained in this, right? There is no sort of formal training that you can make a child get up and walk. It's the child's duty to do it, and every child does it sooner or later. The time is a different thing, but every child does it, right? We've all done it. So this is the time when they develop their coordinated movements, and they also develop their vocal cords to produce the right sounds to make the right meaning. Now, let us talk about these sounds and the meaning, which is language, okay? All of us learn our mother tongue, right? Now let me do a small experiment with you all. So let's try this, okay? Today, I'll put all of you in another country, say Germany, right? And you go to a grocery store, you buy something, you want to say thank you, right? And the word for thank you is danke, right? You say danke. So every time you want to use the word thank you, what will you do in your mind? Okay, I want to say thank you, and I know thank you is danke, so you have to use the word danke, and then it comes out as danke. So what are you doing here? You are actually reasoning it out. There is a logical process that is going on in your head, and the outcome of that reason and outcome of that logical thought is the word that comes out, the language that comes out. So any language you learn right now is learned logically, through logic and reasoning, right? But think about your mother tongue, right? When you have to just say thank you. Do you do all of this process in your head? Okay, now which language do you use to translate for your mother tongue, right? There is no language for you to translate, right? It just automatically comes out, right? Can you make this German your mother tongue now? Will that be possible? It's not possible. You can try hard. You can become a fluent, avid German speaker, reader, philosopher, whatever. But still, that somewhere subconsciously that logical reasoning happens, right? So this mother tongue is absorbed very differently, right? And children who are 2.5, 3, they speak very fluently with minimal grammar errors, right? Based on how well they can pronounce, they learn pronunciation, development of vocal cords again. But grammatical errors, especially by the age of 3 or 4, you will see that speak their mother tongue with very minimal grammatical errors, right? And how have you taught them complex grammar, right? Complex grammar, vocabulary, and all of that when you yourself are struggling to learn at this stage, right? That child has done it very effortlessly. Now you have to understand how the child is also doing it. It's that mind of that child is very different compared to what it is ours, right? They absorb the language. They take it as it is. They do not reason it. They take a word and associate it and use it. That's how they learn the mother tongue. That's how we've learned our mother tongue. All the other languages are a layer above the mother tongue, right? It's not going to be as fluid as our mother tongue. Right? So this is the stage where the mind is called an absorbent mind, right? It takes in everything as it is. I can give you another example of the absorbent mind. Think of a picture taken in a camera, right? You're standing next to a beautiful garden, right? You're there and your picture is taken. You're smiling, you're looking good and everything, right? The picture is clicked. You forgot right next to you there was also this trash can and it's looking very ugly. Once the picture is taken, right, no matter what you do, the trash can is in the picture, right? You cannot change it. Forget Photoshop and everything, but the idea is whatever the image is, it is fixed. So the impression is made. So the absorbent mind also works in a similar fashion, right? The impressions are made in the mind. Whatever is there in the environment, the good and the bad, is absorbed, is taken in, and then it becomes a part of the child, right? They do not learn at this stage through logical reasoning. If you go there and you put the spoon back, you are a good boy. Extreme logic doesn't work for them, right? So they work by being in the environment, by taking impressions from the environment. Right? Now, how do they take impressions? That's another thing, right? Because when they are imbibing the environment, the entire environment around them, the way we talk, the way we eat, the way we drink, the way we sleep, everything is absorbed by them, right? Our routines, what do we do when we go home? Where do we leave the footwear, right? How do we keep our home clean? All of these are absorbed by the child. They do not logically think about what is right and what is wrong at this stage, right? So they absorb everything in, and they learn it through their senses. Their senses are particularly active and strong at this stage. For those of you who had experience with very young children, they will go to the floor and pick up the tiniest of objects which are not even visible to you, right? You will not notice that those things are lying there, but they'll pick it up and then they'll probably put it in their mouth or show it to you or whatever. But that is how sensitive they are, right? They learn through their senses. The senses are very, very active at this time. So when they are gathering information, they're gathering the environment through their senses. So the best way to work with this child at this stage is work with their senses. Give them anything that they can learn through their senses. When they work with their senses, they're able to gather facts, information, knowledge about the environment around them, right? So when they gather these facts and information, they are building their intellect. They are also becoming a part of their own culture, of their own immediate environment, which is their home, right? So when if you have offered a toy to a small child, a child around below 6 years, right? You must have noticed that when you give it to them, they are very excited. They see it. They feel it, they put their hands all over the place, they try to twist everything. Then they put it in their mouth and then they try to taste it, everything happens. And then finally what they do is they take it and they throw it on the ground, right? If it's an expensive toy, your heart starts beating a little faster, isn't it? You will feel, oh my God, I spent a lot of money on this, it might break, and more often than not it does. But when you think of the child, what the child is doing, the child is not playing with the toy. I mean, we call it playing, but what he's done at that stage is he's touched it, he's smelt it, he's tasted it, he's seen it, he's seen the colors, he's felt the texture, right? To get some, he also unconsciously drops it, right? When a glass falls on a ground versus wood falling on a ground, the sounds are entirely different. And that is also factual information that we have, that the child is possessing.